This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, I have heard.
No, I just need to take it.
And I bottomed out my car trying to go to Whitney.
Chair,
I should
Chair
walk.
Marsh.
Yeah, you should have one.
Great.
All right. Okay, good morning. I call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of August 16, 2021. Please call the roll.
Member Hennigan,
Present.
Member Hutchins,
Here.
Member Kaczynski,
Present.
Chair Marsh.
Here.
Let the record show that Vice Chair Carey is absent with notice.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, any public comments from the audience? Hearing none. We'll move on to the approval of minutes.
I wasn't here, so I'm not making a motion.
Okay,
I had one question, and it seems to me that all of us were polled, I thought, for a reason on a certain project that was under our review. Am I mistaking that, or my memory is not what it used to be?
What do you mean you were told?
It seems to me on 6470, we were asked.
At the end, after the motion was made, it was, hey, who did it and who did, but there was no poll. I never polled.
Okay.
one by one.
So we were asked for the,
Yeah, it was.
it wasn't a polling, it was just a clarification.
Yep, I didn't hear very well. I thought it was 3-1 at one point. Mhm.
Well, that said, I move we accept the minutes as they stand.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I want to remind everybody that this is a quasi judicial hearing. I'll ask the commission, has there been any ex parte communication?
No.
Yes, on 6470, I had a brief conversation with Dr. Jeff Eder, who's a friend of mine. Do I need to expound?
We need to know what the content of that conversation was.
We were just having a conversation, and he was talking about his dismay at the last hearing, the last meeting of this committee, and not fully understanding what was going on. And I couldn't opine because I wasn't here. And at that point, I had not read any minutes because they had not yet been produced.
Thank you.
None.
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 Okay. We're here, item number 2, the development plan. I think it's a resubmittal for 6470 North Ocean Boulevard.
Will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand? Gotta stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
When you come forward, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in. And please speak directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to represent what,
Do staff first.
or staff, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Corey O'Gorman, Town Planner. This is the development plan review for 6470 North Ocean Boulevard. As you know, this was deferred from your last meeting. We addressed some comments and concerns of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The applicant did resubmit to staff for review. There were some minor comments which the applicant addressed and submitted a revision last week. The project does comply with the zoning regulations for the town. There are some very minor comments that were in front of you this morning that would need to be addressed at the time of building permit. And they were just minor discrepancies in some dimensions and things of that nature. I'm here to answer any questions, and the applicant is here to present the revised architectural. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, any comments?
Tara Bamber, Ingenuity Group, town engineer. We reviewed the plans that they submitted last week. There are discrepancies between the site plan, landscape plan, and drainage that are minor that can be resolved during building permit.
Thank you. Okay, the applicant. Thank you. That's commission.
Good morning. I am Mark Janczewski. Thanks for hearing us last month. And this month, as Tara just mentioned, we've brought a revised plan, and with the help of staff, I believe we have addressed every issue that was raised, including the minor discrepancies that were brought up by staff and Tara in particular. So we brought some information to demonstrate moving the house back 7 feet, showing it lower and well under city guidelines for massing. And the designer, Fabio, is here to discuss that, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Fabio Pereira. I live 10704 Northwest 21st Place, Coral Springs. Okay, from our last review, we did, as Mark said, a few revisions talking about the massing of the house. That was one of the concerns. We shift the house 7 feet to the rear of the property, close to the intracostal. So I think that is a big help. The other concerns that you had was the south elevation, and we did modifications, as you can see on the plans. We put some planter and little balcony in some areas. And we changed the configuration of the windows. That happened on the south elevation, and to make it consistent with the whole house, we did it all around the house. So front and north elevation was changed also. So it's consistent. What happened on the south elevation is consistent with the north and front elevation. We are complying with the square footage of each balcony. I don't think we have a little concerns, probably the discrepancies between some charts that I don't know at this moment, but we will take care of any minor concerns. I think that's all.
Thank you. Are you able to speak on the landscape modifications or?
No. Landscape?
I think there were some adjustments to the landscape.
Good offer.
With Mark Janczewski again. The two concerns that I'm familiar with were addressed. One is that the buffer or the protection of the existing planting would be equal or better with what's new. Now, there was a discussion about that at the last meeting, that it'd be nice if you can keep everything that was there. We understand that with this design and the septic and the drainage that's proposed to be successful, we have to interrupt what's there, unfortunately. So the instructions were to have Scott McClure, who is our landscape planner and designer, to put back equal or more buffers in height and depth so that there would be screening between the street. We don't, neither us nor anybody else wants to have communication of visual or sound. The more privacy we can have, the better. So that issue was revised, and then our Doug Winter, who did the civil, he reviewed it, and there was some planting over the drainage fields. And then that was revised, and Fabio can speak for Carla as to whether the revised one made it to today's photos. It looks like
Is it the revised?
it is, okay. Second, so that was the second issue, was that some of the planting was on top of the required drain fields, which they can't coexist in the same space. So, and Tara had brought that up. Thanks, Tara. So, in as much as we understand what needs to be compliant with, we've provided that in this revised drawing.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Comments from the public? Okay, I'll ask the commission to voice any comments, make any comments.
I had a question, Corey, I believe this is for you. On your report, you're referencing the conservation easement and the plat, I believe. What's happening with that? Okay, that's not minor, right? That's pretty significant.
Mr. Chair, if I can
Yeah,
address
Christie, could you?
that. It's an issue that we're going to address before building permit. I'll be working with the property owner and applicant to address that, to make sure that that issue is resolved, because it's an access issue, but we also have any litigation related somewhat to that issue. So we're just going to handle it before building permit to make sure it complies with the code.
And the applicant has no issue with that.
No, it should be fine.
That's good.
Okay. Well, I would say I appreciate your response to some of the comments that were made. I think there are improvements. I think, I don't know if there are any other comments.
I agree, moving it back was
Yeah.
very nice. I think it's a beautiful home. I like the side load garage, and I appreciate their attention to your comments last week. Last month.
Well, last month, I thought it was a reasonable home. And I think that thanks to the comments of the chair, it's even better. So it's big, but I think it'll make a good contribution to our town.
Okay, can we get a motion?
With no further comments, I move we accept.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Did you say aye? Did you say
I said aye.
Okay.
So sorry.
Okay, moving on to the third item. Again, a quasi judicial hearing for the development plan review for 2 Whitney Way. Staff, please.
Good morning, Chair, board members, Corey O'Gorman, Town Planner. This is the development plan review for 2 Whitney Way. This item, as you recall, was deferred to your meeting last month to address several comments of the Planning and Zoning Board. The staff or the applicant submitted revisions to staff. They've been reviewed. The project does comply with the town code. The report does indicate to you the issue regarding the concept plan, and we're in the process of working that out. Carla may have an additional comment on that, but the project does comply with code as designed.
Chair Marsh, we have to back up just a little bit. We need to swear in everybody.
Oh, sorry.
And so we can also talk.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, thank you. Does anybody wish to speak?
Is there any extra communication from the members?
No.
No.
No?
No,
Will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Yes.
When you come forward, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in, and please speak directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, would the applicant like to come up?
Is there any other staff?
Or, sorry.
Any staff
Yeah,
first?
I'm trying to
I
move along.
know Lisa might
Oh.
want to speak, or Tara. And I don't know if Ron has anything.
Yeah, sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Lisa Trepepi. I'm the town engineer. I was involved in this project from its beginning. It started several years ago. So I'm here to give you just a little bit of a historical perspective. The property that we're talking about, the two lots that we're talking about, that was one big piece of property that was never contemplated by anyone I know of to ever be built on. There were no improvements there. Thompson Street was a 20-foot wide substandard town road. The majority of this parcel at the time was predominantly mangrove, wetland, and there was never a thought that there was the ability to build anything. So when the applicant came in, there were a lot of questions, a lot of answers that needed to be answered, a lot of improvements that need to be put there, not only on their property, but on the town's right of way. And so the original owner requested that the property be split into two parcels, and that they had hired a land planner, Bradley Miller, to come up with a site plan that had to correspond with the plat that had to address all these issues. There was electrical issues, there was no water main to speak of, there was no fire protection, there was no ability to get a garbage truck down there, a fire truck down there. And so what we normally do here as staff when we see environmentally sensitive lands is that we ask the applicant to work with the applicable agencies, which in this case was the Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP, to do a jurisdictional determination to figure out what's left of this property that can be deemed buildable. And so you see what's called Lot A and Lot B. That's the area that we would call the upland area. Everything else that's dashed, which also includes our right-of-way, Thompson Street, cannot be built on. And the DEP permits that were obtained were very clear that we are to avoid, it's avoidance, it's called avoidance, not minimization, avoidance of that dashed in area. So staff worked very closely with the original engineer of record and with Bradley Miller to go through what we would see in the future of the issues that we could face, which we are facing now with the first home, how to address these issues. So if you look closely at this plat, at this survey, There was a 40-foot ingress and egress easement put on Lot A in order to accommodate access for both Lot A and Lot B. We didn't find it necessary to extend that 40-foot access and utility easement because the way we looked at it on a planning standpoint was it can be accessed, Lot B and A can be accessed using that 40 feet. Now, Thompson Street was a 20-foot right-of-way. Basically not standard. There would be no way to turn a vehicle around. There would be no way to provide drainage for this road. So the engineer of record had to address those issues as well. And the applicant agreed to give us some land, additional right-of-way, and you can see that as it's called Tract A. The applicant gave us additional right-of-way in order to expand the Thompson Street corridor. Right, there you go. Now, what was interesting about this property was that this area was pretty much the lowest area around in the area. And so part of addressing all of the issues, there was a tremendous discussion with respect to stormwater management. Historically, there are several single-family lots that were built before some of the codes that we have in place today. Also, Thompson Street itself historically drained into this area. And because this area was forever vacant, the historical flows just ultimately ended up in this lot, and then ultimately into the environmentally sensitive areas to the west. And so one of the other issues that needed to be addressed was for the engineer of record to calculate and to historically find that the drainage basin that historically flows into the area and address that as well. And so with that, there was what we call an off-site plan for the Thompson Street extension that addresses the historical flows of the adjacent properties. So with that widened right-of-way, we were able to extend the road somewhat, provide a turnaround, like a T turnaround, get buy-in from Boynton Beach Fire and our waste hauler supplier to make sure that they were able to turn themselves around for safety purposes too, you know, EMS, and also to address the historical drainage. Now, we all know today that we have a lot of ordinances in place that don't allow straight stormwater discharge on other properties. However, some of these properties were built prior to the ordinances that we have in place today, and that's why the extension of Thompson Street has a series of detention areas and catch basins and piping, all at the expense of the applicant, original applicant, in order to handle that historical drainage. So there was reasons why we, as a team, came up with these off-site improvements and this site plan. Also, you see a wetland setback because there needed to be some type of buffer between the environmentally sensitive lands and the buildable lands. Those items, all of those issues were contemplated many, many years ago by the applicant site planner and the original engineer of record, working with us as a team. This is the site plan, the engineering plan, off-site we call it, and then the engineering plan on-site that the applicant today has submitted to all of you for review. So I'm here basically, if there's any questions about what we did back then, I'll do the best I can to continue to remember. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thanks, Lisa.
Welcome.
Christy, do you mind swearing me in on the table so I can say a couple of things as well?
Sure. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to provide this hearing now in session is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. And so I just want to point out a couple of things. Thank you, Lisa Chapapi. And so one of the issues that we came across while reviewing this application was in regards to the concept plan. There was two major issues with the concept plan, which was the setback, the 25 feet wetland setback. Because right now where the primary house is going, it encroaches into that setback, and as well with where the driveway is going off Thompson Street was creating an issue with the concept plan and also with some of the drainage infrastructure we have on there. The applicant has, I already spoke to the applicant on Friday, and he will come up and speak more, but he is willing to move the driveway out of Thompson completely and put it on the Whitney Way. So that is, once we see plans, that won't be a foreseeable issue, but you do have to keep in mind that if you approve the project as is, you have to make sure that you allow them to make that modification to the plan submitted today. As well as with the 25-foot wetland setback. I am not quite 100% sure of where it came from. I know there was talk of maybe it being a buffer, a required buffer from DEP. I finally heard back from DEP on Friday at 5 p.m. That for single family homes, they actually do not have a required setback from the wetlands, and they did approve a DEP retaining wall to go along that wetland where you see that all the way by the wetland. So in our code, I had Corey and both Manny very extensively look at our code to see if maybe possibly that 25-foot setback came from our code, and unfortunately could not find anything in regards to our town code where it says that 25-foot for buffer, as well as DEP is not imposing it. So right now, staff is still working to see, how they can amend that concept plan. So if you approve this project, it will be subject to amending the concept plan and allowing them to move their driveway over just to Whitney.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's good. Okay, the applicant like to respond or present?
Good morning, everybody. Franklin Hoyt. I live in 13349 6th Street in Wellington. And we made the revisions that were requested on this project. One of them being the rooftop wasn't currently for building code. We're okay with eliminating it, but I do would like to have some more clarification on where specifically this is prohibited per code. As you can see the picture, the stairs that go to the rooftop was eliminated. And there was also a question about that flat area that you can see above the garage. The rendering is not perfect. There's supposed to be a wall at that edge, and that is not a flat roof. It will have the pitch. If you see the other pictures of the plan, you'll see that it will have the pitch 412 required. As the town clerk mentioned about the driveway on Thompson Street, originally we had two drive-ins and drive-outs, Thompson and Whitney. We're okay with eliminating the one on Thompson and just leaving the one on Whitney. The other comments on some of the sides of the house, somebody believed they were a little too simple. First of all, I want to apologize for my architect. He has a second shot of vaccine last week, and he wasn't feeling very well. He was still planning to come until last night. He canceled on me. So hopefully I can still answer any questions you might have.
Okay, just for clarification, you're the owner of the property?
Yes.
And is this a speculation, or is this a house that you're going to occupy?
That's a good question. I'm planning to move in the next lot, build and live in that one with my wife and 3 kids. This one is originally planned for my parents to live in, but unfortunately, my mother is having some health issues. She's 80. So right now,
No, that's fine.
1 year from now, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Okay. And you understand that you have to modify, unfortunately, the corrections that the town clerk just clarified. Right?
Yes, about the setback.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Does anybody?
I do have a question. If you reorient your drive off of Whitney, which I think is very important, and Carla, I know you kept saying allow them to move it, but I think it needs to be a requirement for them to move it, right? Okay. If you reorient that, how are you going to have to redesign the home? How are you going to access the garages?
No, I think there's plenty of space to access the garages through the entrance that's already designed off of Whitney. Yes, we'll just eliminate the area we're going out.
The access
Thompson.
onto.
Yes.
Okay. I like the design of the home.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I have a question then about the drive. If it's moving to Whitney, you're eliminating both parts of the.
Correct. I might not eliminate the one on the west side to leave it more for parking. It's still inside the area of the property lot. But there's no way to go out through that. I mean, the road on Thompson Street doesn't even get that far.
Okay.
It's just for parking outside the garage.
Okay, so.
And also to make it easier to turn around.
Are you going to eliminate the landscaped island here?
Would you mind putting the plan?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
The A1 would be a good,
Yes, that's correct.
It's freezing on me.
right there.
The computer's freezing. So
Well, in that island right now, what we have is a swell for the drainage. In between the 2 driveways that face
Yes,
Thompson.
that's the island I thought.
So would you extend it to the east where you're eliminating that impervious area?
Correct, we can do that, yes.
So you're just gonna leave this section here for ingress and egress?
Correct.
Okay, and then I think there's also a comment from the in-town engineers that there is a 5 feet setback from the property line for driveway, so you might have to also. If
Right,
you choose to
reduce
keep-
that. Mhm.
If you're gonna choose to keep this, you're gonna have to move it 5 feet.
Okay. No problem.
Now, I'm not certain whether I should be asking you or the town engineer, but the drainage issues that come with this are rather huge. There's neighbors that are to the south of you that could be heavily impacted. I know when this land was originally, there was some beginning efforts to scrape it. Neighbors got flooded. So we talked about on-site and off-site drainage. So it seems obvious to me that on-site will be the responsibility of the homeowner, but who's going to be responsible for off-site? I mean, maybe I'm mistaking something, but I want to make sure that my neighbors and friends don't get flooded. As much as I think it's a creative use of the real estate, they take precedence right now in my mind.
No, I agree, and I share your thoughts. Maybe you can answer that question better than me, but well, first of all, the owners on the south side are actually happy that this road is being built because now they can have an exit through that street, which they didn't have before. And I believe when they designed the road, it was taken into consideration the drainage.
The off-site drainage, which includes several lots and includes our right-of-way, is ultimately our responsibility as the town.
Right.
The good news is, in my humble opinion, we have a great staff now that can possibly look at having some conversations with some of the lot owners in that area, in that historical drainage area, to see if we can minimize some of that flow that is occurring in that area. Before, we never cared. We never thought the property was going to be built on. But now we have to address it. The applicant today has to address his on-site stormwater management, and we have to address ours, which is our right-of-way, Thompson Street, and everything that accumulates onto our street. So we're in the process of completing what we call the off-site improvements. And we've been working with the adjacent homeowners to do the best we can to make sure that we're not flooding onto the adjacent properties, specifically to the south. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, it would seem to me that at the very least, the amount of water that should be moving past this property and eventually finding its way into the swamp should not be in excess of what is happening with no development. I mean, if nothing had happened, the people on Harbor Drive North would pretty much have to live with what they've got. So do you think that this reduces that amount of flooding?
I definitely think so, because of the fact that we are putting in several catch basins, fairly large size diameter pipes. You can see on that drawing, there's like besides the driveway, if you can see an L-shaped detention area. Okay, so it'll go from the catch basins, and if the catch basins can't handle all the flow, it'll flow into that first L-shaped detention area. And if that L-shaped detention area can't handle all the flows, it'll flow into, keep going to the west, to that linear detention area. And if the linear detention area can't handle the flows, it'll overflow into the environmentally sensitive lands. So there's like multiple redundancy. There's redundancy that's for stormwater to continue to move and channel itself to the west.
So it sounds like there's improvement planned, but here's a question. You mentioned, Carla, a retaining wall being approved by DEP past the buffer along the wetland area. Is that going to retain more water on the applicant's site and therefore stop that excess flow from these various redundant catch basins? Is that going to stop the flow and keep it on his property?
So I would suspect that the proposed wall will be on their property only, not in our right of way. Our right of way will be open.
I see.
Yeah.
So that 15 feet of right of way, it's 15, right?
Yes, there cannot be a wall there.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
that's public right of way now. So the wall, if it's going to begin anywhere, it'll be beyond that 15 feet.
So there's still an avenue for that flow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Could you indicate on one of the site plan drawings where this potential wall is, please?
Well,
If you look at the concept plan, Neil,
Right on the
the
west.
15-foot right of way shows as tract A. So it would have to be to the north of that.
right.
It's along the west property. If I'm not- Anyway, I think those are good points. I would hope that, Lisa, you've been overseeing this, and I have great faith in you that the drainage improvements will, I think, offset some of your concerns. Because the owner has to maintain his drainage on his property first 2 inches, I think.
Correct.
Before it, it gets dispersed or goes onto the right of way. So I think, having driven down there a couple of times now, this has got to be a great opportunity to improve the infrastructure. I think that's a great opportunity for the town. In terms of my only concerns were, I had the 5-foot setback on that driveway buffer.
Chair Marsh, if you want to call for public comment, I know you have some public. That want to
Okay,
speak
sure.
to the project
Okay,
before
sorry.
we-
Yeah, sorry. I keep spanking you, right? Any public?
I just wanted to add one more thing. On that alley right now, the right of way, we're maintaining it right now, both Whitney Way and the end of Thompson. So I imagine in order to have a proper drainage, that's gonna continue to have to be maintained. But if that's the right of way of the city, then I imagine it's gonna have to be assumed by the town to maintain that area.
Thank you. All right, anybody in the audience would like to speak?
Barrow O'Carroll, 18 Harbor Drive North, and just a few comments. This property is right behind my property and some of the other neighboring properties on Harbor Drive. Historically, there's been a lot of drainage issues that Mr. Hutchins has brought up, and the town engineer and her staff and the town have worked to develop the off-site infrastructure to improve drainage in this area. I welcome the change today to remove the driveway going on to Thompson Street, because that was going to pave over a detention area as I reviewed the plans. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the last meeting, but my concern is still drainage. It's still drainage. When these improvements were started to be made maybe 2 years ago, the scraping of the road caused water to come into my property and flood it, where now I have sandbags and other bricks to stop the water from coming in. The hope is that and I trust Lisa's judgment on this. I'm not a civil engineer, but the hope is that drainage, because it is a low point at the corner of my property and Thompson Street. So all the water from the neighboring properties comes to that low point. And whereas I applaud the idea that historically we may be able to go back and work with some of the property owners and ask them to retain some water, they're not obligated to do that because they're grandfathered in already. So I don't anticipate that the water flow will change from the surrounding property. So I expect that the same water flow will continue to occur at that corner, and the infrastructure that has been put in place will hopefully catch that. I want to ensure that the development of this new property, which I welcome, by the way, it's great to see that property being developed back there. It's been anything from a forest to unmaintained to whatever over the past number of years. So I really welcome the development, but I want to make sure that in that development, no additional drainage concerns pop up. So I don't know if there's additional drainage plans have to be done. I'm not, again, not a civil engineer. I didn't see specific drainage plans on the application. Maybe there is that I didn't see, but I want to make sure that the water drainage from this property to Thompson Street and in general the infrastructure, the off-site improvements are calculated to take care of the historical water flow, but also the water flow that's going to happen now when Whitney gets paved and when Thompson gets paved. Now, Thompson is part of that infrastructure, that paving is part of the infrastructure to move the water down into the retention areas, the L-shaped one and the linear one. So I applaud all that work, but I want to make sure that we're not going to do anything negative to affect that work. And I think that's the case. But I want to be doubly sure. So I would ask the town to, make sure that that doesn't happen, because there's been times when I've been out there in thunderstorms redirecting water away from my property in the past couple of years. And I don't, when everything's finished, I don't want to be in that position.
Okay, well said.
Chair Marsh, Lisa and myself and the contractor met with Mr. O'Carroll on Tuesday of last week to address his concerns, and we did come up with some additional solutions that will hopefully take care of the problem.
Yeah, they're real concerns, so I think.
Absolutely.
Anybody else wish to speak on this subject? Okay, I'm allowed to speak now. Yeah, I think, if there are no other comments from the commission now, I thank you for, first of all, removing the rooftop area. I think that's put us all at ease. And also your, if you could turn to the elevations for me a sec.
Which elevation is that?
The west and south, I think. Okay. All right. You've indicated there now you're putting these eyebrow elements above the windows and the fenestration, which I think is going to help. I think they're a little thin, but that's just my, I think they could be increased in depth just to read a little more, but I applaud you for at least recognizing that. There is one window it's driving me crazy. Can you go to the other elevations? Go up one.
Okay, the computer's freezing.
Okay. Whoops. Raise it up a little bit for me. No, up. Thank you. That awning window that's sitting in the middle of all these, what appear to be casement type windows in the middle there.
Where, sorry?
There's an awning window. The three windows going horizontal.
Okay.
I mean, that's the only window. All the other fenestration is going vertically. Could you make that too vertical to match with an overlight?
Yes.
It just seems, sorry, it's just me.
So are you talking about a casement window?
Yeah, I mean, everything on the rest of the building is vertical. And so it's just my strong suggestion.
Maybe we can make 2 windows instead of 3, but vertical.
Yeah.
Can do that.
Okay, just a minor thing. Any other comments? Think you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I do 100%.
All right. Okay, are there any other comments? And none? You have a motion? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just would like to, I think if we let this go forward, which it sounds like it probably will work better than what exists right now, we just want to make sure that the drainage issues are addressed. And you said there's additional work going on, and that we have some backup plan in case during the construction process we get a lot of rain and it starts flooding in a way not anticipated in the final development. So I guess I'm all right with it. I just want to make sure that we don't at some stage create the famous flood of Hudson Street or Thompson Street, excuse me.
Right, both.
Oh, I lived through one.
So I can take a stab.
Okay,
at a
go ahead,
motion
please.
and trying to make sure here. So I would move to approve the project with the condition that the applicant meet the concept plan with removal of the 2 driveway connections to Thompson, 5-foot setback on the westerly drive, and extreme attention to all drainage options in order to make better the drainage situation than it currently exists.
I would just, one thing, just amend the concept plan rather than for them to meet it, because they can't meet it right now. So amend the concept plan and subject, just if you say subject to all town staff comments, Lisa Chapepi does, Tara Bamber's comment does include that 5 feet from that driveway, so.
So conditioned upon meeting all of staff's comments. Okay, that was a lot shorter.
Okay, do we have a second?
Are you gonna condition it for them to change the horizontal windows to vertical?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you.
Could you read everything that we're going to be?
They'll amend the concept plan, meet all of staff's comments for the driveway to be off Whitney Way and for that windows to be vertical rather than horizontal.
No, she said it right. The
Yeah, she
driveway off Whitney,
Yep.
no longer on Thompson, no longer.
Okay, so moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good luck. Okay. Item 4, now a quasi-judicial hearing, the development plan review for the western portion of, what is it, lot number now, please?
So it's going to be 20
Lot,
Ocean Ave.
lot 20 Ocean Avenue. Any ex parte?
None.
No.
No.
Well, right now it's 54 as it stands because we haven't released the unity of title. Once we release the unity of title, it's going to be 18 for the eastern portion and 20 for the western portion to follow the current addresses of Ocean Ave. Because it's even on that side.
Okay, no ex parte. Staff?
Will be for staff and will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
When you come forward, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in, and please speak directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, staff?
Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry.
No, we have to have staff come.
This is development plan review for 54 Ocean. The scope of work includes construction of a new one-story single-family home with 4 bedrooms, 4 1/2 baths, cabana, garage space for 3 vehicles, covered loggia, swimming pool and spa. The staff report indicates some comments that would need to be addressed during building permitting. The project does comply with the town zoning regulations. I'm here to answer any questions that I can. And, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Sheriff? Oh, building?
Good morning, Durante Guy, building official. So I did review this application, and with regards to the requirements for the Florida Building Code, the minimum requirements, this development proposal does meet all the requirements. Once building permits are submitted, more detailed analysis will be done for the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the technical aspects of the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Tara Bamber, Ingenuity Group, town engineer. The site does meet the drainage requirements. I'm concerned about the retaining walls in the back, as they're higher when you add the fence on top than the code requirements.
Thank you.
Good morning, Andrew Gordon, 1025 Costa Rica Road, Delray. To address the sidewall comment, the fence will be inset 12 inches around the property. And I know Guy had a concern about the foundation. It will be designed with piles. So I have the architect and landscape architect here as well.
We'll just ask one question. This is obviously a double lot.
Yes, sir.
So we got a plat showing the splitting of this lot.
You're not gonna necessarily have to replat because it was the unity of title that they had.
So do we have a drawing that shows those 2 lots?
I mean, we can't just subdivide property. Help me, Mr.
This is the current survey for just lot 7 is attached in the application. Right now, when the town commission approved to divide it, Corey did have to review to make sure that it meets the requirement to be divided into those 2 lots. So there is a minimum dimension per our town code that they have to meet every lot, and we did review that before we brought it to the commission to release the immediate title. So here it's only for that lot 7, and so you have another lot 6 of the same size on the other side.
I understand all that. I just.
And
Okay.
but on that, there's a note that says there's an encroachment note. So how does that impact either?
I know on lot 6, the neighboring site wall was encroaching into our property. Maybe they carried that note over with this survey, I'm not sure.
3-foot CBS wall crosses
Yeah,
over
that's-
the easterly property line.
That's on lot 6, the property to the west,
Encroaches onto this lot.
onto lot 6, which is the neighboring property.
Is it lot 6 or lot 8?
So this is lot 7, and then lot 6 is the other portion we'll be building
On the west?
on the east.
Okay.
East side. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just, I find it strange that there's no, but you said, fine, that's,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did look at the issue, but I think that based on, it was the unity of title, and that will obviously, once they build, that will be released. And they can apply to property appraiser to have them identified as 2 separate lots, but there's not a separate legal requirement for them to replat these 2 for subdividing.
So on the screen, I just provided, this is what the aerial of 54 Ocean Ave. Again, once they demolish this, when we release the immediate title, there's still a house standing there. So we can't release the immediate title right now. We can't release it until it's demolished. Once it'll be officially demolished, then we'll go ahead and sign the paperwork to get that released.
okay.
So is the division line basically in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead with the presentation.
Sorry about that part. So essentially what we're proposing is a 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath, 3-car garage, 4,200 square feet under air, 5,877 total.
Sorry, the computer.
That's all right. It's Monday.
I know. Let me try reopening it.
So essentially, again, we have single family, single story, 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath, 3-car garage, concrete tile roof with a paver driveway. We have there's always a grass through the backyard with the coping around the pool, covered loggia with a fireplace, again, retaining wall around the property. And then we have the fence which will sit 12 inches inside of the retaining wall. Pretty much all I've got. And then, as far as the front elevation, it'll be, smooth finish stucco, wood clad garage doors, and yeah, bronze windows.
Okay, you're the developer, right?
Yes, so the builder.
Builder. Okay. How high are you coming up? You're coming up to 10?
Beam is 12.
No, finished floor.
Oh, 10 foot, yes, sir.
So you're going to be about 5 or 6 feet above. How tall is your retaining wall?
Retaining wall is 6 foot on adjacent property. So we have step downs to the garage, so that's how we're able to, lessen that slope from the street to the edge of garage.
Can I ask that, Ronnie, 10 is the minimum you can do in this area?
Yes, that is correct. The, the new base flood for this area is actually 9 + 1 for freeboard, so it is 10.
Okay, just curious. Any comments from anybody?
I think you had some public comment.
Public?
You can call whenever you're ready.
Okay, any public comments? Another pipe.
Place going to hell.
Good morning. Elizabeth Ackerley, 31 Coconut Lane, which happens to be right behind this property. I'm living in an old house that is not lifted up above sea level as much as all these houses. And I've been there for 20 years and they keep building these houses around me and putting 4 or 5 feet of fill in and putting a wall around it. And there's nowhere for the water to go anymore except in my yard. And this is only going to make it worse. Those are 2 lots there right behind me that are going to have retention walls and they're going to maintain their water on their property, which is impossible. I watched the water coming out of the driveways on my street when it rains, pouring down their driveways into the street like a river. Nobody's maintaining any water. But I am getting flooded. And it's only getting worse because of the sea level rise with the king tides. And I don't see that the town has any plan to deal with any of it because it just keeps getting worse. And if we aren't looking at what's coming, we're all going to be underwater. But putting all those walls around all those houses is just making it impossible for the water to spread out like it used to over all those properties. They've built 6 or 8 of these houses around me since I've been there, and it just keeps getting worse. And you say that you can't flood your neighbors, but you continue to do it. So I don't know what the answer is. It's a lovely home, but my home is lovely to me too. And my yard has calf deep water in it when we have heavy rains. And it wasn't like that when I moved in. So that's my.
All right, thank you.
They put that there's a 15-foot right of way between me and these houses. And they put that drainage in there, which does nothing. I don't know what that's supposed to do. They put a pipe down there. The grates are all covered with grass. It does nothing. So nobody's dealing with this, and it's coming. It's coming.
Okay, thanks. Lisa's run out of here.
Sarah, are you able to speak about the drainage in the alleyway there? Or do we need Lisa?
Yeah, that was before my time, but I know a lot of it has to do with the detention at the FDOT detention areas. and Coconut Lane is just low in itself. So,
Yeah, they did some improvement, which helped,
yeah,
but I think from the building department's standpoint, just before we move in, I mean, all owners have to comply with their on-site drainage requirements, correct?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the town has voluntarily joined the FEMA's community rating system that offers discounts to the entire community to meet the scientific guidelines that FEMA has put in place. And approximately every 10 years or so, FEMA revises what the minimum height should be. So based on the information that we have from FEMA, is the worst flood we're expected to get within a year, a 1% chance, is a 9-foot flood. It's just a fact. So what happens is someone building a new property has to be, according to what we've adopted, 1 foot above that. So that is where, you know, we are obligated to build or finish floor level to respect the flooding and to mitigate any possibilities of significant damage to homes if and when we do experience this flood. The retaining wall, I'd say as far as building is concerned, the reason for that is to basically deal with that. So because the lot is now higher, to restrict flow of water beyond that property is why we have a high wall that actually inverts that water back to the lot. So we are very strict with how we inspect to ensure that these lots do maintain water. You know, we have no control over a disaster when the entire town floods, but what we've seen so far as town staff is that the new construction that has happened actually does work, and it significantly improves the area with regards to drains. With regards to the flooding that happens down driveways, it is something that I believe the town will have to look into for the properties that had driveways installed prior to the ordinances that we do have in place. I've actually myself gone around town and done videos of certain driveways in certain areas, and the characterization that was mentioned today that it is a river is true. The longer that driveway, the house without gutters, it is torrential coming down those driveways. And that's one of the reasons why we have cutting away. I must also mention, and just tie this in to Thompson Street, that the area that we're talking about that has the cutting away is actually a ridge. So that water, there should not be any large amounts of water naturally coming from that ridge. So that water is coming from somewhere else. That's creating that cutting and that excess flooding that we're having on the road. So it's unfortunate, but we are very keen, and as a town, we accept that as our own problem, and we've been dealing with that. A few other strategies we've been, putting in place, but I can guarantee that we do our best to make sure that these developments actually do the opposite of what they seem like they're doing, to reduce the actual effect on flooding in our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa is back if you wanted her. She was.
Lisa, could you come up for just a minute?
Did you hear the question, Lisa?
No, I have no idea. I was in the restroom. Sorry.
So this is a property that's going to be developed on Ocean Avenue, and the homeowner on Coconut Lane behind this property is concerned about drainage into her low-lying lot.
Right. So,
And the drainage in the alleyway on
So the alleyways are always a challenge. The alleyways for Coconut and the alleyways for Hudson, because they are very low-lying areas. And what we try to do is to, obviously make sure that they meet the code on site so that they're not adversely impacting adjacent properties. And we hope that the adjacent properties over time, as they get revised or redeveloped, don't adversely impact other properties. So, the goal here is to retain as much water as we can, understanding that, if we get a 100-year storm, a huge storm event, every property is going to hold as much as they can, and then they can't anymore. The reality is when you have a major storm event, a named storm event, the properties are designed to hold a certain amount of water, and then after that, it will flow into our rights-of-ways and our alleyways. That's typical in South Florida of how development works. So what we try to do is to make sure that what we had previously, what we are proposing pre versus post. Post is better than what was pre, than what was there before. And so this is why we go through more of a process than we've had in the past with respect to drainage, and every single lot gets reviewed for drainage because of these issues. Now, the alleyway for Coconut is extremely low, and we continue to monitor it, and we continue to correspond with the Department of Transportation with respect to the 2 detention areas on East Ocean Ave to make sure that they maintain their property and their drainage system. So it's an ongoing maintenance issue, an ongoing collaboration with the state so that we're all in sync together, especially right now during the rainy season.
Yeah, we were just, one of the homeowners on Coconut Lane stated that, the easement drainage system is overgrown, there's grass over it. Is that a DOT responsibility?
So the area that's between East Ocean Ave and Coconut, that alleyway is a town responsibility, though we have to make sure that we don't encroach upon the environmentally sensitive areas, because there are some, and we are not allowed to chop down, a wetland or areas like
basically, it sounds like there needs to be some maintenance or review.
in the alleyways. That could be,
it's a point of information.
That could be. The areas along East Ocean Ave on both sides are the responsibility of FDOT. The wetland areas is their responsibility. So every 6 months or so, we make a phone call to them to make sure that they clean out the wetland portion of those areas on East Ocean Ave.
Okay.
So, it's ongoing maintenance.
Sure, please.
Yeah, I believe that the resident that spoke to us described water accumulating in her yard because it wasn't being retained in these newer elevated sites, and it being calf deep. And that strikes me as something we should be very alert to. I realize that if everything gets built up, it no longer is a problem. But here we have a problem that is directly affecting one of our residents. And throughout the town, this is going to happen to more than just one or two. And has anybody in the town gone to look at the flooding that is occurring on Miss Ackerley's property, just in heavy rain? We're not talking about tropical storms or anyone else.
Okay. I've known Elizabeth for probably 20 years.
Same here.
And yes, and so it's always a challenge because, and I get it, because I live in the same house on Singer Island that was built in 1951, so I'm low just like she is. And we've talked about it and try to address it, but it's very difficult. You have FEMA, the federal government, telling us we need to raise these buildings higher, we need to bring all these properties up higher. But you also have to make sure that the quality of life for the residents that are here, that have purchased homes that were built in the 50s, their quality of life isn't compromised. So it's not easy trying to balance that. We have to make sure that that we do the best we can to make sure that Elizabeth's property isn't flooded from the water that occurs in the alleyway. But it's also difficult because her elevation is like the same elevation as the alleyway too. And so it's just difficult.
May I ask a quick question? So do you need anything from the town or the committee to make this better, or are we doing everything we can?
Well,
as a town?
Yes, I think that we, as we go through our priorities, we have a limited amount of staff to do public works. And so there's a list of areas that need to be addressed. And with the staff that we have to prioritize what gets done next. And the alleyway is on that list.
Good to know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it's, that it behooves the civil engineer who's designing this new property to comply with no outfall to any adjacent property.
Right.
So I think it's going to take time to get everybody up to this level. But right now, I think for Elizabeth's sake, this property has to maintain its drainage on site.
Right.
And,
According to the code, up to a certain.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It's an inch over the entire site.
Right,
So,
and Elizabeth, I think what's there now is just sheet flow from this property, but I think in reality, once this retaining wall is put up, and if you look at the engineering, civil engineering, the water is contained on the property. It's not going to solve everything for you, but I think the onus is on this applicant and his civil engineer to make sure that it complies with.
I understand that these properties are supposedly maintaining their water on their property, but when I moved in that house, there were no walls on that alleyway.
Right.
There were none. There weren't any houses on those lots. It was all open and the water could just spread out. And as they built each house and put up a wall on that alleyway, and now it's a whole alleyway of walls,
Right.
there's nowhere else for that water to go. And it's coming into my yard. Hillary used to come and put a pump in my yard when it rained after they built these walls to pump the water out of there. And then he said, we can't do this anymore. That's when I got flooded, was when all those walls went up. And so every time they build another house on Coconut or Ocean and put a wall behind it, I get flooded more. That is the truth. And it's not that they're not maintaining their water. I'm sure they're maintaining their water. The water has nowhere else to go now. I'm the low spot.
Mhm.
And it's hard to watch after over 20 years, all those walls going up and my flooding problem just getting exponentially worse. So here's another wall, and there will be another one when they build the house on the east lot. And I give myself 2, maybe 3 years in that house, and I'm going to have to get out because of the water, which is sad.
No, it is, no doubt. Well, I think hopefully Lisa's friendship and professional.
It's I don't know. It's sad, okay? Because we lived in a Florida that was different back then. In a Florida where there were no walls, there were no fences, over time, things have been evaluated, regulations have changed. And so we try to live with the mandates that have been given to us, unfunded mandates, by the way, and try to live together. And here we are with older houses and newer houses trying to coexist with each other, and it's never a perfect situation.
I will just say that this is support of our argument in decreasing the impervious area on lots, because it's not just the walls that are built, it's simply development in the fact that you have impervious area on land where you never had anything before, and that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's, the houses have got bigger and more footprint. Anyway, let's try and move on, and we respect your comments, and, hopefully staff and the town can keep an eye on it. As Ronnie has reported, he's already surveilling conditions around, and Tracy, I don't know where, this may have to be a sidebar discussion, but all right, let's get back to the applicant and any more comments. Commissioners have any comments? I'll just say my only, I'm so glad it's not a two-story house. That's a relief. I think it's, it's very simple. The only problem I see is I wish you didn't highlight all those windows. And I would strongly suggest that you use some more reserved color for highlighting that than just punching them out. I think it's a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't do the house any merit. Sorry.
Gary Zabrowski, architect, 9712 Vineyard Court, Boca Raton, Florida, 33428. I agree with you. I have suggested to the client to keep them simple. That was the developer's push to accent them. I can reiterate to soften the colors.
Please, it's just a simpler contract or a more complimentary.
I'm in 100% agreement.
Thank you. Get some support finally.
Architects that agree. I love it.
Stick around.
Find your friends where you can. Find your friends where you can.
Thank you.
Clear. Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Penny, you're catching up from last time,
So I'll make a motion to approve this project condition upon meeting all of staff's comments, and with the last comment of softening the colors around the window. It is softening a detailed enough word for staff to then approve.
Guy or Tara, would you have any issues with just softening? I mean, if they soften by one tone, I mean, is there any specific?
just a more.
Just so staff doesn't have to ask us again.
And I think the architect knows what
Yeah.
we're trying to.
Yeah, it can only be a suggestion anyway.
Right.
Okay.
David likes it.
Well, I like suggestions, not, directives. My only issue is the inevitable impact that's going to occur on other properties. And I don't know whether that is something that we should include in this, but I mean, I like the house. It's a good look. And I'm fine with it. But if somebody wants to put something in there regarding water retention,
Well, I think it's on staff and the applicant too. And the
Wasn't that
applicant's
part of
engineer.
comments? Yes, that's part of staff comments. So if we condition it upon meeting staff comments, we should cover them, right?
like what you said then. You want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the project based on compliance with all of staff comments and softening the color around the windows.
And just for the future, you should always try to make your, any motions subject to staff comments, because staff is looking at code. And even if they go on to building permits, they're gonna have to be staff comments.
Sure.
Because that's code. We can't really change that.
and to comply with staff comments.
That's what I
She
started
said-
with.
yeah, she said-
I just want
We have a motion, right?
Yeah, who's
to
that?
second. I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Slow down too much. Okay, number 5 of the 5th item was discussion regarding the flat roofs. I think, I don't know if any of the commission members or staff have any more update on concerns. As we know, Corey presented again his research material. Personally, I think we should just try and keep our minds open to learn anything and get this to the workshop so that we can have unified approach.
Is there anything else you would like for us as staff to do prior to the workshop, or any discussion or anything additional you want us to bring besides this memo to the workshop in October?
Go ahead. Lou.
Yeah, I think it was sort of a consensus and when we were looking at the flat roof, that we wanted the flat roof behind a parapet 3 feet tall. I suppose it could be less if it was a single story home, but we want that parapet to break up what otherwise would be just a flat roof. So I would like to just see us make some comment that we can take to this joint workshop with the suggestion of the parapet and perhaps maybe look at the difference in heights that might be required, but high enough to hide any utilities that people would put on the roof.
We did take it to 3 feet for the parapet, I do believe, in one of the last ordinances. But we can definitely look to see if you want to modify that to make it different size requirements, if that's something that you guys also want to take into consideration.
Yeah, I think we can talk about parapet height.
Yes.
I have a comment on parapet height. I don't want to see the parapet ever be a height to be a safety rail. The parapet has to stay low enough that it can't facilitate unapproved use of a flat roof, if we ever get to that point. I would like the parapet not to have the ability to have a railing or any appurtenance attached to it to make it higher. I would like that to be codified. In terms of Corey's handout, I think most of it dealt with other definitions of maximum heights or single-story heights, or how the heights are defined. And I don't think we have a problem in our town with what we have. I think we're all comfortable with the 1 and 2 story heights, the numbers that we have. I think the issue is going to be, how do we define, and I'd like to ask definitely for input at the meeting from the commission, how we segregate structural issues relating to flat roofs versus conduct or use of the flat roof. And I think we can facilitate structure whatever the town feels is appropriate use of that space. But I don't think the input should come from us to be overly defining the conduct of use. Does anyone else share those?
No, I think it was very.
I like that.
Yeah. I think the height is going to be something we have to, the point of reference, as I call it. Whether we determine that it's to the tie beam, which is supporting that parapet. Because as you know, I've said over and over, what horrifies me most about flat roofs are that vertical, exaggerated height. So I think some of that is contained in the material that was presented, but we need to look at, and I agree totally, I think the height of the roof we can use our current heights as reference, points of reference again, but let's look at it close enough to make sure that we don't make it, say, 24 feet to the underside of the parapet, and then you have another 30 inches, just for argument's sake. Then you start to get that, exaggerated vertical element. So there's a lot of kind of cross-pollination that we need to do here. But I think your point about reducing anything on the parapet to less than 36 should automatically void that safety barrier.
So if you went to 35 inches, you'd be covered.
You'd be covered. But again,
Well, I think the actual safety height's what, 42 inches in Florida code?
no, residential is 36.
On a roof?
Anywhere.
Residential, it's a universal.
Okay.
Maybe we go to 32.
35.
We go to 32 or 34.
30,
So just to point out that that's going to conflict with equipment screening.
1 inch?
Equipment screening. So if we choose to allow equipment on the roof, the first thing is, for example, an AC unit, we have to mount it 24 inches above the roof on a stand. And then the second thing is the height of that unit. So we're looking at 24 plus, let's just for even numbers, say 3 feet is the height of a compressor. So we're now 5 feet. On a 2-story, it's not going to be very visible if you hide that behind a 30-inch wall parapet, for example. But on a single story, it will be visible from the street.
but I think I should be so bold to say, I think we should discourage or disallow any equipment on the roof, air conditioning. I mean, our lots are big enough. You don't see it as a problem.
I like the idea of putting it on the roof. It creates more yard space and we have better drainage characteristics if we don't have pads that are supporting all this stuff around the periphery of the house.
No, that's fair. I'm just saying, it's not something a roof is designed to handle. That vibration is not a constant.
Well,
We'll get an engineer and an architect and figure it out.
when you were talking about the heights and things before and being comfortable with our heights, one of the things I did notice was that a couple of these communities do have a lower overall height if you have a flat roof.
Right.
So that could help with our massing. But to go back to Neil's point, should we as a committee go to this workshop with with our idea that these are I'm sorry, that's not the word I'm looking for, but these are our thoughts as a committee that we would approve. We would like to go with a flat roof with all of these caveats and these concerns that Neil very well articulated, that I wrote down, but I can't re-articulate.
Yeah, I think we have 1 month, we have a September meeting, so between now and September, if we could maybe spend a little time to create, some criteria by which we are all concerned about. And maybe leave some time on that meeting to get a little bit deeper into it.
That'd be great. And then a cover memo
So that we
from us.
can go
that
to
this is
those
what
folks
we-
in the back
Yes.
with some,
Because I'll tell you, the commission is looking to you for recommendations.
Okay. Good to know.
So maybe if we don't have 3 plans to look at, we'll have a little more time where we can come up with some good ideas.
You don't have any on the pipe for next month, on the plan set?
Probably maybe 2, maybe.
okay. We'll make it 10 o'clock. Any commissioner comments apart from the flat roof? Sorry, Martin.
If you allow me for a second, Martin Wiesel. 5 Englewood Road. I think one of the criteria is why this whole flat roof came up is with the raised FEMA requirements, we're also raising the buildings itself. So we're raising the entire, we're raising the entire height of our town basically by allowing the flat roofs, which is dominant now in the new contemporary construction designs that are coming up, semi-contemporary. what, I think the idea that we all had with that was to actually bring down the size of it. And one of the big issues that Mark has, and that we probably all share when we see it on a concept plan, is that you have these massive walls sitting in front of you. One of the things that I would like to see, either from staff or whoever, however we can get it, would be to see if we're going to 24 foot where our tie beam is right now, 24 foot. If we're adding the 3 feet, how would that look on a facade, on a contemporary facade, versus a 2 foot parapet on top of it? Where does the window come towards the tie beam? So basically looking at a 2-story structure, how would the 2-story structure look with one or the other? And then based on that, I think we have a better understanding where we would like to go, you and the commission itself too. I think that's what we should be.
So we should create some renderings as part of this. And I do think visual aid helps all of us, but we should also see it with the current code and how the flat roof compares to the current code.
Okay, thanks, Ron. All right.
Corey, are those renderings something that you can work on, or should we get Lisa, or?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't do drawings.
Okay. We'll work out something. Dave's gonna come up with my office.
Yeah.
I'd be glad to.
Any other comments? I'll have a motion to adjourn.
So quick question. So for next meeting, you all are going to work on individually bringing in just some of your concerns for regarding flat roofs, and we're going to put them together to bring to the commission in October.
Correct.
And then who wants to do the town commission meeting, be the liaison for it? And
David's gonna have one more shot at it.
September.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome, Mark.
Can I just ask one thing, if we're bringing back comments? I know that, Corey, thank you for all this information, but could staff suggest, could you offer your concerns and guidance on, like, I've seen this be an issue, this is a great thing to add? I mean, I'd like to know what we're facing, because I don't do this. You see it every day. Okay.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Any other?
Second.
Third. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.